As we close in on the 1 year anniversary of the Timo Meier trade, thought it'd be a good time to check in, see what we thought of the trade, and see what we think of the trade now. So, all that and more on today's episode.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Probably part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day, and if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be revisiting the Timo Meier trade. We're going to be looking at some of the initial reactions to the trade, kind of see how the pieces are performing, and look at if maybe the Sharks had just kept Timo Meier, where this team would be now compared to where they are right now, or at least where the future of the Sharks is going to be. I guess it's kind of a better way to look at it. So before we get into all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So Timo Meier was traded to the New Jersey Devils on February 26th. So we're a couple weeks away from the actual 1 year anniversary, but with the Sharks being on their all-star break and then, kind of enjoying some time off, I thought now would be a good time to kind of go back, dig into this trade, because this trade is going to be looked at kind of a big piece for the Sharks' future, right? And how the players from this trade perform in the future is going to be compared to what Timo Meier is / could have been for the Sharks. And then also, if when the Sharks hopefully one day get good again, and these pieces are a big foundation of it, this trade will be, again, looked at, I think, much differently. So let's go back and actually look at what some people thought of the trade at the time. And just as a quick reminder, what the actual trade was. So if you're watching on YouTube, throw the trade graphic up. So the Sharks receive a 2023 first-round selection, conditional 2024 first-round selection. That, again, if the Devils make the Eastern Conference Finals neither last year, they did not, or this year, that pick becomes a first-round pick. Defenseman Shakir Mukhamadullin, forward Fabian Zetterlund, defenseman Nikita Okhotyuk, forward Andreas Johnson, a 2024 seventh-round selection. The Devils received forward Timo Meier. Also really weird that they put forward, if you're watching the graphic, they spell out forward for Timo Meier, but everybody else just gets the letter. Anyway, defenseman Scott Harrington, defenseman Santeri Hadaka, forward Timur Ibrahimov, I can never say his name right, goalie Zachary Imond, and then the Colorado's 2024 fifth-round selection. I believe that was the Cogliano trade. So we'll get into kind of how the pieces are performing and such in a little bit individually, but just as a reminder, the full trade, it was a massive trade. If you remember that day, it broke like that morning, and then we spent like 5 hours, 6 hours waiting for the actual trade to come through. So going back and kind of seeing some of the grades for the trade, the Athletic gave the Sharks a C+, and the Devils an A+, because the Sharks didn't get any of the top tier prospects. That's all the top tier prospects, right? That was always kind of the thing, is which prospect could you potentially get? And they did not get any of those, unfortunately. So, but Sharks got a C+, Devils got an A+. ESPN gave Sharks a C, with the Devils an A. They said if you're a seller, it's be quality over quantity at the trade deadline. I'm afraid Mike Greer did not follow that rule. Okay. Corey Prominent, The Athletic, a little bit more even. He gave the Sharks a B, the Devils a B+. basically says, I think it's likely the Sharks got 2 to 3 NHL players with long careers heading, and Muka Madon has a solid chance to be an impactful career. Okay. Our good friend Mary Clark from USA Today gave the Sharks a D and the Devils an A+. Gained 2 first-rounders, maybe. Out of the New Jersey Devils saves his deal from being a complete failure, but failing to get any of the Devils' top prospects is quite disappointing. Mike Grier had leverage here with Meier as multiple teams are on the forward, and yet this is the deal the Sharks settled on. The score gave the Sharks a C+, the Devils an A. Package doesn't blow me away. None of the big names, which I got laughed at from Devils fans. Feels like a complete ripoff. You got middle of the pack prospect base, et cetera, et cetera. The hockey writers give the Sharks B and the Devils an A-. Daily Faceoff gave the Sharks a B- and the Devils an A. And even on this very podcast, I said it felt like it was a very underwhelming trade at the time. And I still, it would have been nice, very nice to get one of those big names. Unfortunately, did not work out. And even to this day, Devils fans still in the mentions every once in a while. God bless you guys. Anyway, so going back and looking at it, right, it felt very underwhelming. I think we'll talk about the pieces here in a little bit, but fast forward 11 months, almost a year, Sharks fans, I feel like we're happy, right? I mean, yes, you got lucky with some of it, and that's a lot of it is getting lucky with some of the picks and how the prospects are turning out. But Shakir Mukhamadullin, you could argue, is better, if not just as good at any of 3-game sample size, but he's looked great in the NHL. He's been dominating the AHL. He's going, is at representing the Barracuda at the AHL All-Star event. Like, you have to be feeling really good about Shakir Mukhamadullin compared to where you were 11 months ago, right? Nikita Okhotiuk, again, he's been kind of hit or miss. There's been some games where he's looked good, some games where he's definitely struggled, and I think he could probably use a little bit more seasoning in the AHL, but we talked about that the other day on if he is a potential, waiver candidate to try to get him down there, get him some AHL games, and continue to can work on his development, right? Fabian Zetterlund, and we'll get into the pieces for him in a second, but again, coming over the trade deadline, he felt brutal, but Fabian Zetterlund is going to be he's had a great year. One of the leaders on the Sharks scoring, has been an absolute fan favorite. It looks to be a piece that's going to be part of the Sharks' next good team. Like, Fabian Zetterlund has been as advertised, and that doesn't even include Quentin Musty, who are again. Quentin Musty looks like he is tearing it up in the OHL. You still have another either going to be a late first round, or if the Devils keep playing the way they are, probably a mid-second round pick coming to you in the 2024 draft. And whatever the Sharks do with that, whether they pick someone, trade up, whatever they do, that's still going to be kind of continuing this trade tree. But again, not having Timo Meier does suck, and we'll talk about what happened if the Sharks had maybe just kept Timo Meier and kind of gave him the same contract. But I think as Sharks fan, we have to be feeling way better than we did 11 months ago. And again, I think very much we as fans, myself included, you get caught up in the spur of the moment, what happened in this trade, et cetera, and felt like it was a bad trade. I think we might owe Mike Grier a bit of an apology because right now it's looking to be a really great trade for the Sharks, especially for a guy who maybe wasn't going to stick around. And as I know, the Sharks have been very bad this year, but you can point to a lot of these pieces from this trade and as potential future pieces that are going to be huge parts of the next great Sharks team. Mukhamadullin, Zetterlund, Musty. If these guys continue to perform the way they're performing and kind of continue their development, all these guys look to be really good, if not potentially special players in Quentin Musty for the Sharks going forward. So we'll dig into kind of how the pieces are performing for the Sharks and for the pieces that went to the Devils, kind of see how those guys are performing and going here in just 1 second. We're past the halfway point of the season, and Sharks fans, I know it has been a tough one. Regardless of the Sharks being almost last in the standings, I want to remind you that you can still win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick some of your favorite players, whether they're NHL superstars like McDavid, Crosby, or McKinnon, or pick some of your favorite Sharks like Tomas Hertl, Fabian Zetterlund, or Slippery Pete, and then record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Sharks fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, so let's kind of dig into some of these pieces for the Sharks and kind of how they're performing. And the Devils. So let's start with the Devils side, and we'll kind of work our way backwards. So the players we can kind of start with Scott Harrington and Zachary Emond. Neither one of those guys are still with the Devils. If you remember, Harrington was actually waived the next day and then claimed by the Anaheim Ducks. And where is our good friend Scott Harrington right now? He is playing with the Blue Jacket. Or no, he's sorry. Where is he right now? Maple Leafs. Yes. So Scott Harrington, I think he's with the Maple Leafs right now. So nope, Ducks. No, nowhere's right now. Anyway, RIP Scott Harrington. So he's not in the NHL right now. Okay. And Scott Harrington had a good season with the Sharks last year, right? Especially as a last-minute add-on for the Sharks at the end of the season. Zachary Emond, he's now in the Canadiens path of development. He's playing the ECHL. I think he signed a 1-year deal with the AHL-only deal with the Canadiens. So he's in there, probably a long shot to make the NHL at this point. And then so Hadaka and Timo are both playing in the AHL right now. Hadaka has played okay. He's got 10 points in 30 games for the Utica Comets, and has also played 3 games with the Devils this year. Does have a point for the Devils. And Timo has been kind of bouncing between the AHL and the ECHL. 10 points in 25 AHL games and 10 points in 7 ECHL games. So both those players are, kind of doing their thing. The big one, of course, was getting Timo Meier. And this year for Timo Meier has been a bit of a struggle. He's played 34 games and has 18 points, 9 goals, 9 assists, playing about 17 minutes a night. I know he's had some issues staying healthy this year. Even going back to last year, had some kind of issues staying healthy, but just really has not kind of been the same guy for them. And I think a lot of it kind of fit, right? So Timo, right, in San Jose, volume shooter, right? Shoot. He led the league in shots, or was leading the league in shots when he got traded. Just a reminder. So in the 57 games last year, he had 255 shots on goal with the Sharks. That's about 4.5 shots per game. This year, in 34 games for the Devils, he has 98 shots on goal. That is a little over 2 shots per game. So he is a volume shooter who doesn't get to volume shoot anymore because, again, you have guys like Jack Hughes. You have Hughes brothers. There's just a lot of players on the Sharks that are on the Devils that he kind of has to defer to, right? And again, that doesn't mean Timo Meier is a bad player. It's kind of a little bit of the guy putting up stats on a bad team, which Timo Meier 1000% put up stats on a bad team. And then now when he's kind of having to share the workload a little bit, maybe not able to be, isn't able to be as more efficient, I think is kind of the way you're looking for it. So, but Timo is going to be there for a while. He signed a massive extension, $8.8 million for the next 8 years. So he's going to be there for a long time, going to be there through the 20, 30, 31 seasons with no movement clauses that kick in next year. Would be crazy if they traded him this year, but no movement clause that kicks in next year. I think Timo will figure it out eventually, but just interesting to look at from the Sharks perspective. So Andreas Johnson, part of a kind of the salary dump situation. He's no longer, I think he's with the Blackhawks, if I remember correctly. So whatever, part of a salary dump. Played, pretty decent for the Sharks down the stretch. Nikita Okhotiuk, I think with him, he's looked good at times for the San Jose, and he's also looked like very much like a young player defensively. And I think, like we talked about on Friday's episode, Thursday's episode, I think going to be a decision for the Sharks if they want to try to maybe sneak him in to the AHL and let him get some more seasoning down there, because he's kind of a tweener player right now where I think he's maybe a little bit too good for the AHL, but he's maybe not quite NHL ready at the moment. The Sharks are kind of stuck in a situation with him because he is not waivers exempt, right? And they're going to have to kind of figure out what to do. But in 38 games this year, he does have 1 goal, 6 assists for 7 points. That is tied for 15th on the team, at least when it comes to points. Is averaging 16, almost 17 minutes a night for the Sharks. Again, I think for Okhotiuk, that's kind of where you kind of see him going forward. So, again, I still think Okhotiuk can be a really solid, like 5th or 6th defenseman. But I still need some development, right? Fabian Zetterlund, again, Fabian Zetterlund we were talking about at the end of this or beginning of the summer to the Fabian Zetterlund now, complete like night and day, right? Zetterlund so far this year, so he is the only Shark who has played every game this season. He has 21 points in 51 games, which doesn't sound impressive, but that is 4th on the Sharks, right? With Tomas Hertl leading the way. 14 goals, 2nd on the team behind Tomas Hertl, 7 assists. He's playing 18:35 average time all night. And again, you see Zetterlund, the power, the speed, hit that kind of that dog in him mentality. And I think he's on a great deal right now, with the Sharks giving him a $1.35 million deal for the next 2 seasons. Like that deal is looking very good right now, and they're going to have to $1.45 million deal, and it will be an RFA after that. So I mean, Zetterlund looks like he has the makings to be a guy who sticks around with the Sharks for a while, and I think he will, if he continues to play the way he's playing, will definitely earn another contract from Mike Grier and the Sharks in that 25-26 season. That'll be a fun offseason because you're going to have, that's going to be a fun offseason because the Sharks are going to have a ton of money and expected to start be looking to contend. You're going to have Brent Burns' contract coming off the books. Like, yeah, that's going to be a fun offseason, that 25-26. And Zetterlund's going to get some money that year. And then Shakir Mukhamadullin, right? As I said, has looked great. There was talk, he looked great in the preseason, has kind of carried that over in the AHL. You've seen him work on his defensive game and then kind of marry that with his offensive game. Again, being named an AHL All-Star representative. Yes, I know he kind of came in there at the last minute, but still, like, you still have to be good enough to get, called up as a replacement. And he will play more NHL games at the end of the season because he's been great, and he's going to be. You can basically kind of pencil him in to next year's opening night lineup for the Sharks, because I think he's been that good, and he's looking like, I think, as he continues to develop and grow, I think he's going to be a really solid number 2, number 3 defenseman for you. So, I still think they still need to find that one blue chip guy on the blue line, but I think Luke Madulin can run a second unit power play, which he's already been doing. I think he can, provide a lot of offense. And I think his defense is going to be good enough. He still has some development stuff there. But I think Luka Madulin is looking to be like a really, really good defenseman for the Sharks. And as he continues to grow and develop, like actually physically grow and fill out some more, he's only going to get better. And then, of course, you got Quentin Musty, which, again, bit of luck having Musty fall to you at 26. And I know Musty's only 18, and he's one of the best players in the OHL right now as an 18-year-old. I think he's going to get his 9 games in the NHL next year, and then probably go back in the OHL for one more season. But Musty has all the makings to be a star in the NHL. The speed, the power, the physical tools. And again, remember, Musty just turned 18 over the summer. Like, he has plenty he's plenty of runway here to continue to get better. You see the clips on social media, like Musty's going to be an absolute monster for the Sharks. And then you still have another pick coming, whether that's end of the first round or kind of a mid-second round pick. Like, the Sharks still have something else coming out of this deal. And right now, it looks like the Sharks are kind of winning this deal. Again, if the Devils go on and win the cup at some point, and Timo Meier is a huge part of it, then we can discuss that at some point. But as Sharks fans, we got to be feeling really good about this. So we'll continue here in just a minute. We'll maybe kind of pontificate if the Sharks had just kept Timo Meier, where they would be at right now, and kind of just looking at the cap situation and all that fun stuff. So we'll get into that here in just 1 second. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I feel like Super Bowl Sunday is all about, 1, getting the best seat on the couch, 2, grabbing a bunch of your favorite football snacks. I always, especially Super Bowl Sunday, it's the last one. You got to go out with a bang. And then also placing some super bets, and FanDuel's got you covered with so many ways at the end of the season to try to get that last W or 2 or 3. I really like the Christian McCaffrey to score a rushing touchdown and receiving touchdown. I think Christian McCaffrey is just going to be a monster day because Christian McCaffrey is a monster, and I like to bet on Christian McCaffrey to do fun things. So not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also is best for which players will score a touchdown, how many points were scored, more. They have tons of super fun prop bets there. The place to go for prop bets. So new customers, join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL. All right, let's finish up and think about what would happen if Timo Meier had stayed. So, 1, you can scratch Musty off the table, Shakir Mukhamadullin, Fabian Zetterlund, all that fun stuff, right? No trade happens. Timo Meier stays. And just assuming he signs the same deal, right? That 8 years at $8.8 million with the Sharks. He would be the high. So then you would have Hurdle, Couture, and Timo on the books at over $8 million for the next, multiple seasons. I wonder, the sliding door moment would be the Erik Karlsson thing, right? Do the Sharks keep Erik Karlsson? And then you kind of hope that you can maybe retool on the fly. It looks, especially if Blackwood and Capo Kakinen. Assuming that the Sharks traded for Blackwood, like you could easily have kept Blackwood, like keep Blackwood. You wouldn't have Granlund, you wouldn't have Hoffman. Maybe declare if you wanted to trade for him. You wouldn't have Jan Ruda. Like, I think it would be very much what we saw from last year type of team where, yes, Erik Karlsson's not scoring 100 points. But I think Erik Karlsson on the Sharks this year would probably have been pretty close to a point per game player. And I think you probably see a lot of the same from what we saw last year. But if you had better goaltending, maybe this team is flirting again. If Erik Karlsson stays, Timo Meier stays, I assume Timo Meier would be more productive on a team where he kind of would be the first option, just like we saw last year. I think this team is, and if they get the Capo Kakinen from this year and they get Mackenzie Blackwood from this year, probably flirting with a potential playoff spot. But the big question, right, is are the Sharks just kind of stuck in that creamy middle that I've talked about several times before? If you're new to the show, like there's kind of those teams that are either really good contenders, right? That's where everybody wants to be. You have teams that are kind of rising up, starting to kind of exit the rebuild. Think of a team like the Detroit Red Wings or like the Sabres last year, where it's like, okay, we've been rebuilding for a while, but we're starting to kind of rise up out of it. You have your rebuilders, which seems like the Sharks, right, which are trying in the asset management. And you have those creamy middle teams, which are just kind of stuck in purgatory, where they're okay-ish and they could maybe flirt with a playoff spot, but they're not like major contenders. But they're too good to be bad and they're too bad to be good. And I always kind of think of like Nashville right now, where they're just they're in the mix, but like there's not really a world right now where you see Nashville winning the cup, right? And they just kind of are stuck in the middle. And I think that's where the Sharks would have been if they kept Timo Meier, right? Just that lack of direction. Yeah, maybe they flirt with the playoff spot and maybe they get in, and then, right, who knows what happens to get in the playoffs, but you're probably playing either Colorado or Vegas or Edmonton, or Winnipeg. Like you're playing one of these top tier teams or Vancouver in the first round of the playoffs, and you're probably getting smashed. Maybe you win a game, maybe you win two, just because you get some goaltending or whatever. But like, right. Are the Sharks with that team? I mean, we saw last year, right? And yes, they were really fun to watch at nights, but they had terrible goaltending. And yes, the goaltending has been much better this year. But like, how far is an aging Erik Karlsson or Hurdle and Couture? Like, how far is this team taking you this year? So, and again, your cap space. That's a lot of cap space for a lot of stars. We've seen right now, at least with the Sharks, like that. I don't think that core was getting anything done. And again, would have been nice to kind of root for a fun team that's on its way to potential play in the playoffs. But even the Pacific, right? Like look at the Pacific, and I know like Vancouver is really good this year. I know the Kraken have kind of taken a step back. Vegas is still Vegas. Edmonton is on the middle of a 50-game winning streak right now. The Kings are started the season hot, and they've kind of going through some issues right now, and they just fired their coach. But like, you would probably be in that like Kraken mix right now, where you're again hoping things kind of break the right way for you. But again, you get in the playoffs, and I just don't think that potential team is going anywhere. And if I'm with the Sharks right now, yes, things are bad, but I think they're adding a lot of good pieces that are going to make them have sustained success. And that's what we want, right? Sustained success. We want that next 15 years of potential playoffs / cup runs that we had. Yes, we didn't win everything, but you want a team of sustainable success, right? You don't want those flash in the pan teams that are good and then they're never able to kind of replicate it the next year. And I think the Sharks are building a team that is going to be good for a long time and have sustainable success. So looking back, I think the Sharks I think Mike Greer made a wise decision trading Timo Meier. Would you have liked to get one of those blue chip A+ prospects back? Of course you would. But right now, I mean, you have to feel much better than you did 11 months ago with your return. And again, if Quentin Musty hits the way we think Quentin Musty is going to hit, and if Shakir Mukumadillin continues his development, and if Fabian Zetterlund continues to play the way he's playing, the Sharks are going to have 3 really, really good pieces and a potential star in Quentin Musty, and that doesn't include whatever they get with this second round pick. I'm just assuming it's a second round pick at this point. But yeah, Sharks fans, it sucks. It sucks not watching Timo Meier play, but in the long run, this is the best thing that the Sharks could have done for the organization. And again, building that sustainable success. That's what we want. Sustainable success, where you're one of those teams that every year this team could, if things go their way, this team could be a cup winner, right? Or a cup contender, instead of being that creamy middle team. So that's going to do it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. So schedule's gonna be a little bit weird. I'll be in San Jose for the All-Star AHL All-Star game. So I'll try to have something out then, whether it's AHL All-Star, whether it's whatever. We'll have stuff. Plenty of AHL All-Star stuff, though, will be going up on our YouTube channel. So make sure you guys are following along on there. Just Google YouTube, Google Locked On Sharks YouTube. You can also follow wherever you get podcasts. So follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Locked On Sharks. You follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.